So our book, Hope is Not a Strategy, it basically encapsulates our framework, which is called the Dilemmas Resolution Framework. We use this to help companies define their company culture and build alignment on basically the why, the who, and the how. So why is basically the purpose of the company. The who is what kind of people they want to hire, how do they want to groom them, and the how is basically the values and behaviors that are important to them in their journey to achieve their goals. So it's basically about building alignment among the leaders and the teams on the why, the who, and the how.
Yeah. So again, right? We spend a lot of time over the last 9 years trying to understand what are making companies great and what are not helping. What are things that are not helping companies grow? So every company out there, right, has a very strong strategy. Then we were trying to figure out what is the differentiator. Why are some able to grow? Why are some not able to grow? And across our analysis, our research, and partly because of my education, where I got the Fulbright scholarship, where Government of India gives 14 people every year to go and study in the area of leadership and management. So I was lucky to get that in 2015. Went to Carnegie Mellon, and my area of work research was all around this. Went around, met a lot of companies in the US, big and small. Zappos was one company that I interned with. Was lucky to actually get that time to work with Tony Say. And some of those things made me realize that there is so much that is done on culture, and if you get the culture right, there's no stopping for the growth of the company. Outside, there is a lot of focus. When I say outside, it's outside of India. There is a lot of focus for growth companies on their culture, on defining their culture very well, on helping people align to their culture. There's a lot of CEO messaging that happens. So comparing that with what happens in India, we largely realized that focus on culture is missing. So that was one part. We wanted to work in the area of culture, and that is how this area emerged. Then the next part of it was there is no right or wrong about culture, right? Every organization has to define a culture that will support their strategy. It is not about, oh, this is a great culture, or I want to copy a Netflix kind of a culture, I want to copy a Google kind of a culture. That's not what you want. You want something that will help your strategy. And that is how the dilemmas resolution framework evolved, because we said culture is all about a dilemma, and we call it a dilemma because there is nothing good or bad about it, right? One end of the spectrum talks about doing things a certain way, the other end of the spectrum talks about doing things in a different way. And we call it a dilemma because there is nothing right or wrong. You pick where do you want to stand along that spectrum, where that position serves your strategy of the company really well. And reinforcing that, propagating that, rewarding, recognizing that, modeling that behavior is what is going to make it the culture in your organization. So that is how dilemma started. And we started putting together all kinds of dilemmas, all types of dilemmas through a lot of research, extensive research with companies, people working in academia, and came up with this entire set of dilemmas. Then we called that the dilemma resolution framework, started using this with a lot of companies. And then we realized, okay, whether people do with us or they do it by themselves, that is the right way to approach culture. And in order to make sure we are actually sharing it with a larger audience, we focused a lot on this in the book Hope is Not a Strategy. We focused a lot on explaining those dilemmas in detail and explaining how different dilemmas are interrelated. For example, the kind of organization structure you want to have, whether you want to have a flat organization or a hierarchical organization or a very functionally structured organization, will have a lot of impact in the communication dilemmas, in how things get communicated. Will have a lot of impact on the decision making dilemmas. So that's where we detailed all of this out in the book. And we said, that's not something we should restrict to ourselves, or, when we do consulting with companies, we use that as a foundation for everything that we do today. But we said that a larger audience also know about it, understand it. Some of them can actually try, using it by themselves, right? We've also written down a lot of questions to ask around each dilemma. And when we had all of this material, we said, yes, this is probably something that should be our contribution to the world, of the evolution of industry, right? How to build those nice, happy workplaces to work, or a completely aligned workplaces to be created. We said, let's share it, and that's how the book happened.
Who should read the book? Everyone, I would want to say, but specifically, it should be CEOs, founders, or leaders, because they can identify with the dilemmas that team members are, grappling with, right? Because they can see that, yeah, these are the kind of questions that my team is facing. So they will be able to quickly resonate with it because they would have felt this. It will be a lived experience for them. The other kind of reader that we want to definitely appeal to is consultants who want to learn how to help companies build alignment and define their values, define their culture. So these could be consultants who are already doing this for others or who would want to work with us. So yeah, these are the two kinds of people that we think the book will be really useful for.
Hope is not a strategy, right? For the reason for us to come up with that title, I'll have to tell you a bit of a story. We've been working for the last 5 years with a lot of companies, big and small. Everybody wants to grow, but a lot of them leave culture to chance, right? Everybody spends a lot of time on culture, on their strategy, but not on culture. They say that yes, as the founders, when we were a very small company, we were working really well. We hope the team will pick it up the way we have always been working, right? And in a scaling journey, 1-2 years into the scaling journey, you go and ask any young company, how are things? They say everything is all over the place. That is because we have not been able to focus on the people building part of it. The culture of the company is very bad. That's where on Glassdoor reviews people see that, oh, it's a very toxic work culture, bad work culture, no work-life balance, no growth for people. All of these things keep coming up, right? The same thing when you go and talk to the founders will tell you that, hey, there is a lot of backstory to this. We wanted to offer this, things were not communicated, etc. So it is a lot of mismatch. Culture is an area that doesn't get enough time and attention from the CEO, and that is where the culture that they're hoping to build, right, never really gets built. And that is where we came up with this title of Hope is not a strategy. Hope cannot be what you can't hope for building the right culture. That cannot be a strategy, that cannot happen by itself. You need to deliberately do it. So you can't just keep hoping that you'll have a great culture in your company, but you have to deliberately do it, which is where hope is not a strategy. You really have to work for it, is what the book talks about.
So if you ask me for the top, say, takeaways from the book, I talked about the alignment on the how, right? So how is basically how people are behaving. So we define culture as how people behave when nobody is watching. It's very important to know that culture is not just the HR team's responsibility. It is everybody's business, right? All the leaders, everyone in the company is responsible for the company's culture. So that's one key takeaway that I would say, that culture is how people behave when nobody is watching, and that it is everybody's business. The second one that I would want to mention as a takeaway is that lack of true alignment in the company can be a silent killer, right? It can really sort of destabilize your company. You won't understand it, and it will cause a lot of damage. So you really want to build true alignment, which goes beyond nodding of heads in the boardroom, right? The third takeaway, I would say, the whole framework talks about dilemmas. So these are basically 60 interconnected dilemmas that we have captured, and this cuts across everything that happens in an organization across different aspects. So the challenge with decision making is when it is a choice between a good and a bad option, everyone takes the good option. But when there are two equal options, that is what we call a dilemma, and that's where people get stuck. So you have to be very deliberate about who you want to be, and that is why you need to resolve these dilemmas. If you want to sum this up, there's an analogy that I talk about, in the book as well, and this is something which I discussed with Sirisha. That you have to think of it as a forest versus garden analogy, right? A forest grows without any human intervention. In a company, you want to cultivate the culture like how you grow a garden. You want to be deliberate about which flowers you want to have, where do you want the trees, where do you want the fruits, where do you want to have the pathways, and you have to know what plants you don't want to have. So you have to keep monitoring this regularly. So if you want to sum up the whole book in one analogy, it's the forest versus garden analogy that I would give.
So the book, at the beginning of the book, actually talks about how do we want you to read the book. Okay, the book, there's much before we start of the chapters, after the acknowledgement, we have a note which actually talks about how we want the readers to read. The first part is, we tell them to start thinking about the purpose. We've given some examples about purpose and values, because that becomes the true North Star. So start at the beginning of the book, do the purpose part, and understand why defining that purpose, which is transformative, is very, very important. Then we ask the reader to go to the dilemma section. In the dilemma section, the beginning of every category of dilemmas has a set of questions. If you read the book along with your a leadership team, or if you're reading it by yourself, read the book, and if you're a founder, reflect on it about how many of those questions can you answer for your company. If you have answers for most of it, you really don't need to proceed further, because the rest of it describes about what each of those mean and how each of those need to be acted upon. So it is actually, more than a very easy read, or a book with a lot of stories. It's actually framework. It asks you a lot of questions. It'll tell you what to think about. It'll tell you what will be the areas that will get impacted. It'll also tell you, if you pick up one side of the spectrum, how will it impact? If you pick up another side of the spectrum, how will it impact the company? It leaves the reader a lot to thinking for themselves. So we usually suggest, when you're starting with the dilemmas, answer the first set of questions with your teams. If you have answers, move on to the next chapter. If you don't, go deeper into each of those dilemmas. Every dilemma again has a lot of questions, a lot of areas that you need to ponder about. Think through collectively, and figure out how you want to act on it. That's essentially the essence of the book.
The book is written in a way, and Sirisha would have mentioned this earlier, right? The book is written in a way that a leader can reflect on questions related to a particular area and decide for themselves, reflect if they as a team are aligned or not. If not, they should sit down with all the key stakeholders and go through the dilemmas and try to resolve them. When we use the dilemmas resolution framework, or DRF in short, with our clients, so the book has 60 dilemmas, right? When we do this for our clients, we typically see only around, say, 12 to 15 dilemmas which are applicable to any company. In a lot of other areas, even if they've not written it down, companies, teams seem to be intuitively knowing, what is the expected behavior by the company. But there are these, 12 to 15, and these can be different for, different companies. So those are the dilemmas that need to be resolved. So if somebody is reading the book, the next step should be, to look at the areas where there are some dilemmas, where there are people who are, not sure how to, behave in those situations, on those aspects. Get together and, resolve these dilemmas. And you need to do this in a guided manner, be objective about it, not succumb to, group think, because, somebody has said something, everyone just says yes, yes, yes. You don't want that. You want to have an open discussion. So that's very important. So that is what I would expect anyone to do as a next step after reading this book.
Okay, about me as an author, I did my bachelor's in computer science. and I did my MBA from Ahmedabad. Then worked in the industry, largely worked in the consulting space, which is why my passion for consulting. Um, One thing led to another while I was working on a consulting assignment when the client insisted that they'll give us a huge business if I go back and run it in India. And that's how I morphed from a consultant. After probably about 7-8 years of consulting, I morphed for a brief period of 2 years, managing a large P&L of close to about $2 million. And a team of about 683 people. And that was my foray into understanding more about people, understanding more about building those high performance teams, what is required to keep people driven, motivated, how different people need to be approached differently, leadership styles, and all of that. And my consulting journey also led me to consult a lot with organization building outside of India, and that exposed me to a whole lot of things that we could do differently even in the organization that I was working in, and that got me to implement a lot of what I learned outside, what I was looking at in customers outside, back in the organization in which I was working. And at the same time, Training Magazine in the US recognized me as one of the top 10 emerging transformation leaders, and I also got the Fulbright fellowship. So that was like again a good chance for me to go back to reading, researching, and with this kind of experience, going back to the university and understanding a lot, connecting the dots in terms of what academia was already done in that space. Access to companies also gave me a chance to work with a variety of companies, big and small, in the US. And fast-moving companies that have been traditionally there, companies that are working on breakthrough, technologies areas. So in all of that, what was making some of them thrive, what was making some of them struggle to survive, was culture and largely alignment also within the organizations, right? So getting the right people on board, etc. And earlier, before that, so I have 2 children, and both my maternity breaks, long breaks, right? So I also spend a lot of time studying. So that's when I did my design thinking from Stanford. I'm a design thinking practitioner from Stanford, and bringing all of these together, I decided I will start independent consulting, and a couple of years of independent consulting with companies in India got a very different flavor. And that's when me and my partner Harish, we both started working with clients on this area. This experience of helping organizations, fast scaling organizations, anybody who have an ambition to grow, partnering with them to actually help them take through their growth journey. There's some companies we've taken them to their IPO journey. All of these put together is the essence of the framework and what got us to write. And that's my contribution as an author in terms of my background and exposure to the industry, which is all out there in the form of that framework.
People can log on to our website, which is alignbydesign.in. That is alignment, align, so ALIGN .in. Our emails are Harish or Sirisha at alignbydesign.in. I'm quite active on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @BVHK. Sirisha's handle is the sign of life, THESINEOFLIFE.
Yeah, the reader can reach out to us through our website, which is called alignbydesign.in, or my LinkedIn profile is available. I can share that. People can write to me. I'm more than happy to meet people, talk more about it, because there's an area that is evolving. There's an area where slowly now you see companies giving a lot of importance to culture. We see a lot of second-time founders reaching out to us saying, hey, you know what, my first company failed because probably I did not focus on culture. So I think there is a lot of attention slowly that this area is getting, and that is well-deserved attention, because that's what can help us become the next big nation in terms of everything that we can do as a, in terms terms of employment, in terms of people growing, in terms of access to talent, helping talent grow, not letting talent move out, but making sure they have enough opportunities here. A whole lot of impact that this area can do if we get these things right. And more than happy to meet up, talk to people, connect. So yeah, email, LinkedIn, through the website. Anyways, perfectly fine to reach out.